Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to Birthing the Gifts. I am clinical psychologist, Dr. Khiela Holmes. And here at Birthing the Gifts, we provide a safe and compassionate space to grow your gifts. In this interview series, we discuss the process of people birthing their God-given gifts. So as you may know, I've kind of expanded this series to talk about other topics that are very important in people birthing their gifts. So we've already talked about the role of parents and helping kiddos to birth their gift, nurturing them and birthing their gifts. And anybody that knows me knows that I very much value people being authentic to who they are. And so in that process, this is kind of a segue in what today's episode, if we can call it that, what today's episode is about. And it's about this idea of people really coming to understand who they are and their identity. So today we're going to talk about the LGBTQ community. And let me just define what that is: lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and Q. Some people may call it questioning, some people may say queer. But it's that whole spectrum. And so the reason why this is relevant to Birthing the Gifts is because it's so much wrapped up into people's identity and who they are, maybe even how they view, how they kind of perceive other people to view them. And just we all want to feel like we belong. That's the bottom line. We all want to feel like we belong, that we are part of a group, and feel accepted and loved and all of those things. And when there's not a foundation of people feeling like they can fully be all of who they are in an authentic way, and they can be embraced, even if it might not be agreement. So today we're not talking about agreement about everything, but we are talking about love, respect, acceptance, and all the things that help people to feel loved and connected and valued as a person. So we're talking about now just people being human and feeling valued as a person. And so what I found in the work that I do as a clinical psychologist and just a person, as a human, is that when people don't feel loved, when they don't feel accepted and worthy and validated and all the things, it makes it hard for them to fully be really who they are. It makes it very difficult. And so that's what makes it relevant to Birthing the Gifts, because I want to be a part of, here at Birthing the Gifts, we want to be a part of people being positioned to be all of who they were created to be. And so this is a very relevant conversation today. And so I am going to say this disclaimers. This is this can be a sensitive topic. This can be one where there's a lot of different views on it. So again, today we're talking about people. We're not talking about concepts. We're not talking about theology. We're not talking, though that is important. That is important. I'm not saying it's not important, but just today in this conversation, we're talking about people. We're talking about humans. We're talking about love and respect. So that's the conversation we're having. So I'm just going to encourage all the listeners to please be open to learning and understanding. And just again, we're discussing our perspectives here today, the perspective of us and our experiences and our journeys. And we know that not all perspectives might not be represented here in this conversation, though they're all equally valid and important. So anyway, as we have this this is a critical, important conversation, we ask you to just extend us some grace and some love and some respect as we try to navigate a very sensitive topic here today. So I have here today my cousin, Chrysalis. Hello. Thank you for being here today. So I've introduced the topic, I've introduced myself in this series. But Chrysalis, if you could tell us some about you, who are you, however you want to kind of describe that. Go ahead.
All right, my name is Chrysalis. I am 40 years old. I am a lesbian. I've been out since I was 18 as a bisexual, and then I was married, got 2 kids, and then I noticed that me being with a male is just not what I want. So after I got divorced, I started dating females. I felt natural. I feel comfortable being more with a female.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So another thing, Chrysalis, one of the things you've done here today, which I think is helpful already, is you you give your own kind of description as how you identify. So you said lesbian. You say you identify as lesbian. At one time it was bisexual, but now you're saying lesbian is the word you would use to kind of
Yeah.
describe your identity in that way when we're talking about that. Okay. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. It takes a lot of, and I just want to highlight that when we talk about the Birth and the Gives being a safe and compassionate space, part of that safety is giving people space to just use their own words, right? Use their own words to describe how they feel, how they identify, and go from there. So thank you for starting with that.
No
Okay.
problem.
Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead. Well, go ahead.
okay, so yeah, so I was 18 when I came out. I came
Mhm.
out and told my family,
Okay.
and of course, being African American and being in an African American family that's real religious, they did not accept it. But I mean, I had people and I had people telling me that it's abolishedness and it's they didn't want to hear it. Basically, they want to be negative
Mhm.
instead of being positive. So I just and the reason why I say I was bisexual because I did marry a man, got 2 kids. Got 2 kids, and
Mhm.
through the marriage, I didn't feel I didn't feel me. I didn't feel happy. I wasn't. It's like he was a good husband and a good father, but mentally it wasn't me. I didn't want to be with a man. So of course we did get divorced, and I was happy for that. But I realized that I'm older. When we got divorced, I'm older. I can make my own decisions. So that's when I came out, become a lesbian. And like I
Okay.
said, my family didn't approve it, but I mean, it's my life. It's my life, and I educate my kids at an early age, about where mama is going, where mama is doing with her life, and they know that as a mother, I still love them and I'm not gonna be with their dad. So I told them that I'm I'm gonna be with a female. And so, like I said, at early age they didn't understand, but now they older, they do understand where it is.
Mhm.
So I mean they accept that they accept
Right.
it and they could, they still love me because I am
Right.
their mom.
Right. So you had open communication about it. It was
Yeah.
open, transparent communication, which is awesome, right? Like that's needed, I think, in families, right? Again,
Mhm.
even if people, I think this is such a tough thing for humans to do, to kind of say, how can we still maintain a loving relationship with open and transparent communication, even if it's maybe different things we kind of want, like we don't quite see everything the same way. And at the same time, how can we still respect each other's choices and their their decisions about how they want to live their life, right? Whether
Right.
it's your kids and whether like you're their mother and like so what I want to highlight there is what you said about open communication. You respected them as
Mm.
children enough to say, I'm going to have this conversation with you.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And as a parent, I feel like with if their kids come out, I feel like that they need to be have an open communication
Hmm.
instead of being denied or being mad, being negative. Because at school, at an early age, like middle school and high school, kids getting picked on for being gay or being, transgender or binary and stuff. So they don't need that negative at school and home. So as a parent, they should have an open communication and understand why they, are gay or lesbian or transgender. And so
Hmm.
parents can have that understanding
Right.
of why the kids are like that. And
Hmm.
so, and so they can, and as a parent, you must accept it. You must accept it and respect their choices. Yes, I
Mhm.
mean, as a parent, we want our kids to do, to be different. I mean, to be different,
Mhm.
but have a I don't know. As a parent, we expect our kids to do this and this and this, but
Right.
middle school and high school kids, they're gonna have their own choice. They're gonna make their
Mhm.
own choice. So,
Mhm.
as a parent, yes, you should be supportive and respect what they're
Mhm.
doing instead of
Mhm.
being negative.
Right. Yeah,
And
go ahead. Go ahead. I want to say something in a second, but no, go ahead. Go ahead. You got it.
okay, and you should just support it. And if you don't understand it, look it up or ask somebody who's also
Right.
in the LGBT. Ask them questions. But before doing that, you should ask your kids why. And then if they, because most people who are um in the LGBT, they have a story, they have a background of why they are like that. I mean, because of molestation, rape, it's just a lot of people. It's a lot of story that is for them to tell their parents, or kids are afraid to tell their parents. But as a parent, you should be in the kid's life and understand and communicate instead of blocking them and stuff.
Right. Yeah, you
And
said something key. You said something key. I gotta say it before we go on, Chrissy,
okay.
because you said something key, and I want to highlight. There's several things in what you said that I want to go back through. But one
Mhm,
of the things that you've talked about, which is critical, when I work with families, with teens, with whatever that I'm doing, again, as just a human, and
mhm,
also as a psychologist, because I do therapy and that kind of thing,
mhm,
kids want to feel heard. It's just
mhm.
people. This is not just
Yeah.
kids, but I know right now we're talking about kids, but even as adults, we want to feel heard. We want to feel as if people are listening to us, that they're
Yeah.
not shutting down communication, even though it's hard. I do want to highlight that sometimes it can be hard
Mhm.
topics and conversations that can be very hard. And
Yeah.
people would want to, as humans, it's understandable to want to avoid it or want to just not talk about it. Let's just not talk about it. And what I'm hearing you say, which is important, is for people to acknowledge that yes,
Mhm,
this is a very difficult conversation. It brings up a lot of difficult emotions for everybody. For if it's
mhm.
a middle schooler, a high schooler who is kind of trying to understand their sexuality or gender identity, because we're talking about both, right? So I do
Yeah.
want to be clear. We probably need to, in this conversation, I'm going to insert a little bit of education. That's just my understanding based on my reading and talking to people. It's not just reading, but like you say, hearing people's stories. Is
Mhm,
that um sexual identity, like sexual orientation, is different from gender identity. So when we
mhm,
say words like transgender and non-binary, we're talking about gender identity, how
mhm,
people identify maybe what their gender is in their heart or in their mind, and it may be different from their assigned gender at birth, their biological sex. Let me say that, not gender, their biological sex that was
mhm.
assigned at birth may be different from their gender or their gender identity. So anyway, I just want to be clear about that. That was a little bit of education piece, but you were talking about understanding. So I do
Mhm.
want to highlight that understanding and being open, because it can come across as negative when the conversation is shut down,
Yeah.
right? Though we
Yeah.
understand how people may want to shut that down or may have an urge to shut that down, but people may say, I don't want to hear it. That can come across as if it's not an attempt to just understand me. Even if people aren't
Mhm,
asking for agreement, it's just, I am asking for understanding in a safe space for me to express myself. So thank you
mhm,
for saying that about open communication, people feeling heard. And then I will say that every adult, if there's an adult, especially talking to a child 18 or younger, to kind of know to just sometimes they may have to sit with silence, because some people may be able to describe kind of why and some things on their journey. And at the same time, some people may not be able to describe why. They just know what is.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, seeking to understand maybe a why, but also understand that even if they don't know why,
Mm,
that can be fun too, but just having time for listening. Because what we know, I do have to say this from it is different views out there. So right now I'm going to go just from a psychology science view in terms of the why. That what we know is it's a complex, and there may be a lot of disagreement about this, and I'm going to just say that about the why, but I do want to be clear that not everybody in the LGBTQ community has experienced some sort of sexual violation. Some people have, some people haven't. What we do know is that regardless of sexual orientation and gender identity, I think the latest statistic is 1 in 4 females have experienced some sort of child sexual abuse, and that's not even getting into sexual assault. And then I think 1 in 5, it may be more at this point, but I believe it's 1 in 5 boys have. And this is unrelated to sexual identity or gender identity. So it's a complex combination of maybe genetics and things that are happening in people's life that then kind of define sexual orientation. So I think what you're saying, though, about understanding and being open to communication is what's key. And even if they say, oh, I think I was born this way, oh, it was because of this, oh, it was because of this, you're saying just listen. You don't
Yeah.
have to agree with all of it.
Yeah.
Just listen to what they're saying and
Yeah.
try to walk alongside them on their journey in a safe
Yeah.
and healthy way as they kind of figure it all out. Because there's a
Yeah.
lot to figure out and it can be very confusing, particularly at a young age.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, communication and listening is the key because
Mhm.
I mean, it's like you the parent, you gave birth to your child. You're supposed to love and support your child regardless. So like, I mean, yeah, I came out and like I said, it was a negative. I had a negative, but years on, it became, some people in the family is supportive, some people still not, but that's okay. As long as I'm happy, my kids happy, for me, I'm okay with it. But I mean, but some, like I said, some kids or adults still don't have that support, and it's like, I mean, it's like mentally they still they need the support.
Mhm.
Oh, they still in need of support. I mean, because like I said, you're the parent, and regardless, it's like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like,
No, I think I
okay,
see what you're saying because it sounds like kind of what you're talking about is just parents in an
yeah,
ideal world being unconditional, like it
yeah,
being unconditional love and
yeah,
unconditional support of their child as a human. And again,
mm,
it's a tough thing because sometimes people
it's
may
real
say, what is
tough.
support? What is that? Does that mean I have to go along with everything they're saying? Well, even if it's not about sexual identity or whatever, obviously you don't go along with what your child is doing. You don't support them and say, I don't want to do my homework. Okay, don't do your homework. Like, no, but the way
No,
I would say from a psychology standpoint is like, yeah, no, obviously you don't want them to not do their homework and not care about school, while at the same time you may support them
mm,
and kind of understand, like, if unless they not having any motivation, but like if
mm,
it's not that, like, is it hard for you? Is the work difficult? Or help me to
yeah,
understand. It's just saying, help me
mm,
to understand what's making it hard for you to get your work done. So that's the
yeah,
thing. You're not supporting them not doing their work, but you are saying, I love you enough to be
mm,
patient with you and kind to try to understand where you're coming from because you're my child. That's what I feel like I'm hearing you say, is to just stick with it and
yeah,
unconditionally, because who else is going to be there for the child? I mean, they expecting their
yeah,
parents. So I feel like
yeah,
that's kind of what you're saying is
yes,
parents and adults challenging themselves to say, what does unconditional love look like here?
yes. Because I mean, it's like also, it's like, I feel like, okay, once the kids come out to the parents, be positive about it. Like, my thing is like, if my child come out to me saying they gay, okay, and I wasn't me, and if I wasn't gay, then it's like, if my child come out to me, I'm heterosexual, and my daughter or son say, "Mama, I'm gay," instead of screaming and being negative, take a deep breath And it's like, okay, and just ask questions. And if
Mhm.
something like I said, some people, the reason why, I mean, some people have a bad childhood, like if they been molested or raped or being sexual assault like that, you know, mentally they should need to go to a therapy. But that don't mean that, that don't mean that they to help them because it stop being gay. They just need help because they been molested or therapy, or they been molested or raped like that. So yeah,
Right.
some people probably need therapy for that.
Yep.
But still be supportive and still love your child regardless,
Mhm.
and and so it still had that closure, if once once they, I mean, once they, once you accept it and respect it, that should be a closure because, coming out to your parents, that's a big step. There is a big
Mhm.
step.
It takes a lot of courage to do that. A lot of
Yes,
courage, a lot of bravery. Yeah.
yes. And, some parents would know already, but some people, they like, but,
Mhm.
or they might think, okay, she's in middle school, she's in high school. It might be a phase, Some people might think it's that too. But regardless, just to continue to love your kids and
Yeah.
have an open communication with your kids,
Mhm.
because I mean, like I said, because in school is two different things at home. You never know what's going on at school. If you don't have an open communication with them and stuff, you never know
Exactly.
if they getting bullied
Mhm.
because they gay or they transgender, and at home they don't need that. They need to feel
Mhm.
love and comfort.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, you see
so
some key words. You see, I like how you got it on your shirt there because love, right? So
yeah.
love, comfort, open communication, because you're right, these are just foundational, and ideally any kind of parent-child relationship is that being there. I do want to go back and just because I do this sometimes, Chrysalis, when I'm
Mhm.
interviewing somebody, I like to kind of go back and say again what they said so that we make sure it's not missed. So you said not being negative, but then you defined what you meant by that. You said really what I mean is not yelling, right? So you're
Mhm.
saying, hey, if your child it has enough courage to come with you with something that's so difficult that we don't, and then the thing is, we don't even know how long they've been thinking about this and having
Yeah.
this in them and not quite knowing what it
Mhm.
is and how to describe it and kind of, maybe depending on, you mentioned earlier about depending on the community they come from. We know the African American community, Black and Brown communities, and then religious communities of faith may hold a certain belief about it, so that to really, they maybe have already heard messages about gay people or people who are trans or transgender, and so that may be very hard to talk to somebody about it when they've already heard messages that are not accepting messages. So you're saying, hey, at least don't yell, just listen, talk with them about it because we don't
Yeah.
know what's going on and what they've been through. So
Mhm.
I just wanted to reiterate that. I do want to
Well,
define because we've been
okay, I'm sorry,
go,
but
go
I
ahead.
do
One
have
more
to say
thing, then I'm
I
gonna
do have
define
to
some
say
words that we've been using. Go ahead. Go ahead.
okay. And the other thing is, once your kids come out, never ask them are they, having sex, because
Hmm.
right now, I'm telling you, I mean, you never know if they are having sex. Don't blow up. Just don't blow up. Just like, okay, so this is the time as a parent,
Yeah.
I need to, have my space and just like, okay, I gotta process everything what my kids say. And so,
Hmm.
once you processing, just I feel like, let just go step by step. Like ask
Hmm.
why, how, no, not how, but why, what, and how do you
Hmm.
feel, man, what make you feel like this? But
Right.
and then if you are really, really supportive and respecting this, then if they, or if they are being intimacy, just, just let them know, be safe, regardless, just be safe. And if they're older, like out of high school, if they older, and they, you know, trying to, if they think they ready to be intimacy with the same
Mm,
sex, just continue, say, just be safe, because there's a lot of disease in the world. So just let them be, let them know, just be safe and be protected and stuff.
okay, so really highlighting. So you said a couple of things there, man. I'm trying to keep up with everything you said because you said a lot. It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Yeah,
Because first you're talking about like the first conversation, right? So
yeah. The
again,
first
just to kind of
conversation is coming
right.
out and just something, and then
Then later have
yeah,
more,
later,
more details, conversations about other stuff. So basically what we've been talking about is, hey, what does it mean to kind of have open communication, show
mm,
this love? What does love look like, right? And then
yeah,
so in the initial conversation, if somebody is initially coming out, right? And so what we mean by that is they're saying this is maybe, if they use a word to describe what feelings or thoughts or whatever they've been having. They're trying to communicate something around their
yeah,
sexual identity or gender identity. That's basically what we're talking about. And in that initial conversation, I think what I would add is really starting it with love. I love you.
yeah,
Starting with that, I mean, even before the questions, I would even say, I love
mm,
you.
yes,
Thank you so much for sharing this with me, for
mm-hmm,
letting me into this part of your life. I want
mm-hmm,
to understand what you're thinking and feeling. I love you, and I want to be here with you in this process.
yeah,
Right. So even if parents or adults or anybody that's important in a child's life, I think children are the very foundation from the time they're born as humans, but then from the time we're born, we want to feel as if we're loved and cared
mm-hmm,
for, and people will respond to us with love, loving kindness, even regardless of what we say. So
mm-hmm,
that's what I would say first. And if the child is open, if it seems like they can handle it and it's still safe. It's still a safe space. And like you said, parents are taking a deep breath,
yeah.
all the
Just do
things
it
so they
step
can
by
be
step, just
clear
step
headed.
by step,
Yes,
just
step by step. That's right.
yeah.
And sometimes that's all that's going to get out is I love you.
Mm-hmm,
Thank you for telling me that. That may be the first conversation. And that's
yeah.
it. But if a child is open and it seems like it's still we can have the conversation, help me to understand more about that. What have you been feeling and thinking? Tell me what you mean by that,
Mm-hmm,
and anything else that they want to share. So I just want to sometimes Chrysalis like to give kind of practical things that people can say. So I'm glad that you're giving saying some practical statements about the conversation and then maybe down the line.
mm-hmm.
Again, a love-centered conversation, but then talking to them about sex and what that looks like. And that's a whole nother thing because parents probably struggle all the time with how do I talk to my
Yeah,
child despite sexuality about sex. So it's just a tough conversation, period. But I like
yes.
how you're saying, hey, it needs to be had at some point because
Mm-hmm,
you're right. There are, sexually transmitted infections, STIs, STDs out there. And so we just want to be mindful of that, definitely with youth in general, youth and young adults. I do want to say a few kind of people know as a psychologist, I'm gonna have to throw in some statistics. But you said this earlier. You said, hey, if you don't know and don't understand, you said, hey, go out there and read, find out about it.
yeah. Educate
So
yourself. Yeah.
educate yourself. So what I'm reading now, honestly, this is just from Google. I think this came from the Human Rights Campaign. They have a glossary of terms because, hey, I know it's parents out there where their kids are saying all this kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm,
cisgender, transgender, non-binary, and they're like, what in the world? So let me just say non-binary because people might hear that word. I'm just going to read from the paper, what the paper says. So this is from the Human Rights Campaign. And this is basically a word describing a person, non-binary is what I'm reading about. A word that describes a person who does not identify exclusively as male or female or man or woman, boy or girl.
mm-hmm,
Non-binary people may identify as being both a man and a woman, a boy or girl, somewhere in between, or falling completely outside these categories. It says, while many also identify as transgender, not all non binary people do. Non-binary can also be used as an umbrella term, encompassing identities as agender, bigender, genderqueer, or gender fluid. So I know I just rattled off some words, but the point is it's different ideas and understandings of how they identify gender-wise. You recognize I didn't say biological sex or anything like that. That is different than when we're talking about gender. So
Mhm.
again, I've heard somebody say this, and I remember this. He just said, you know what? If especially a teen, young adult says that identifies non-binary or trans, just ask them what that means to them.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Because
never be ashamed or afraid to ask questions because I still, ask people, okay, if you binary, so do you pronounce what's your pronounce,
what's your
what the
your
pronoun
pronoun, your preferred
pronoun?
pronoun.
Because
Yeah.
I'm still learning about that, about
Yes.
the binary and the pronouns and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And I'm still learning,
Yeah,
so
we're
you never
still
be
learning.
afraid.
Yeah. Oh, you see, regardless of our own identities, right? Like we're still learning, like, and because the thing
Hmm.
is, it's about, again, it goes back to the person. How can we be
Yeah.
people-centered, love-centered, person-centered? And it's just saying, hey, if I want you to feel safe and I'm being compassionate, let me at least just ask you how you identify, what are your preferred pronouns? And then, so
Hmm.
what we're talking about, people say, what do you mean? Well, some people who identify as non-binary might go
Hmm.
with they, them, their. So that's
Yeah.
their pronoun. And again,
Mm,
this is just about understanding because this is
yes.
a conversation we need to have. Let me say more why, because Chrysalis, you've talked about, kind of your journey and then as a person who identifies as lesbian, but then also your journey as a mother, right?
Mhm.
And then being having open communication with your own children. But I do want to say these statistics come from I believe this is the Trevor Project. So the Trevor Project is a group that has done a lot of work to advocate for and talk about the importance of having safe spaces for LGBTQ youth. That's specifically what they do. So, in one of the surveys that they had, they said in 2022 that 45% of LGBTQ youth seriously considered attempting suicide just in that
Yeah.
past year. More
Mhm.
than half of transgender, and this say that including more than half of transgender and non-binary, right?
Yeah,
This is
and that
important
and
just to,
that's
uh-huh.
concern.
No,
And
go
I
ahead.
feel like that's the negative side that no kids or no adult should not go through. Cause I
Mhm.
mean, like I said, I'd rather for my kids to be love support. I'd rather be support and love my kids regardless if they gay, transgender, or binary, instead of saying, okay, you like that, so you need to get out of my house. I
Right.
can never say that to never never turn back on your kids, because that's your kids,
Mhm.
like I say.
Mhm.
And like I said, once again, I said never be negative, because yeah, kids and adults, once you turn them back on them, yeah, they will go to the streets or do other stuff, or harmful stuff, or harm themselves. So why put yourself through that?
Right.
That
Like why even contribute to that? Absolutely.
yeah.
Because again, as humans, it's a basic human need that most of us are going to want to feel loved, feel as though we belong, feel a
Mhm.
sense of connection and value and worth. So when the people that say that they loved us very much reject us, that is
Mhm.
one of the most hurtful, damaging things that could happen to somebody's sense of
My
who they
That's a
are.
mental, it's a mental
Is a
thing,
myth. Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
yeah, and it's like, if you're like I'm saying, okay, so if you it's gonna be a different situation, but I'm saying, like, I'm like, if you was I mean, if it's the other way around, your mom or parent, if your parent did the same thing and you're doing that to your kids, sometimes you need to break the cycle.
Oh yeah.
Break the
Yeah.
cycle, because you don't want the same effect to your kids. You want to do different. You want to be different.
Mhm.
Have a different aspects than
Mm,
what your parents did to you.
absolutely. Yeah, breaking cycles that are unhealthy. So, like, hey, that was unhealthy, that was toxic, that was dysfunctional, whatever it is. And say, hey, let's not keep passing it on. You're right.
Yeah,
So let's again, if I just keep have to keep coming back to it has to be love centered because you're right,
yeah.
it ends up affecting people's mental health, their
Mm,
emotional health. So one of the things we already know here, this statistic has been here, suicide is the second leading cause of death among young people, period, 10 to 24. That's the
mhm.
second leading cause of death, period. And among LGBTQ youth is even higher. It says here that LGBTQ youth are more than 4 times as likely to attempt suicide. 4 times.
Yeah.
And so, it's all type of statistics about that back from the mid 2000s. I see here they're citing studies here from 2018, 19, 2020, where they really start looking at this. And so,
Mm,
one of the things it says here with the Trevor Project, they say that among LGBTQ youth, where there's low family acceptance, they are 8 times is
mhm.
likely to attempt suicide. Let me say that again. The Trevor Project reports that LGBTQ youth with low family acceptance are more than 8 times likely to attempt suicide compared to those with high family acceptance.
Yes.
So they're looking at that. That's the word that they're using. Again, so
Mhm.
we have to know, what does that look like? What is acceptance? Particularly what we're talking about here is not agreement. That's a tough thing for people to see, but what does it look like to have a love-centered, respectful, open communication? I want to understand you and how you feel. That is important to me. Not shutting it down, not yelling, not doing that, but how can I understand you? How can I still embrace you and not, like you say, cast you away? We don't want to cast people away, right? So
No.
what does that look like? What does that look like? So that's what we're talking about now, but we use these statistics to describe this is why it's important. It's just not just because it's not just us talking. It's important because we are to love people as humans.
Yeah.
We are to respect people, especially kids. We're talking about youth right now, youth and young
Yeah.
adults. And then because we know, hey, this causes, like you say, mental and emotional difficulties.
Mhm.
And I'm
Yeah.
sure
It's
you've
like
seen that. I've seen that. That's hard to see.
yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's like if the kids can't get love at home or they can't get any love at school, who else they gonna run to? The
Mhm.
streets?
Yeah, because we
Or
want love,
yeah,
right? We want love,
yeah.
affirmation, approval. So where is we get that externally. Some people find a way to get that internally, but we all desire to have some sort. And I'm not gonna say we all. There may be a few people that don't need that as much, but for the vast majority of humans, not just
Mm,
youth, but humans desire that connection. So like you say, we're gonna find one way to get it. One way or
yeah.
another, we're gonna try to get it. And it may not be the healthiest stuff all the time. So like
Mm.
you're saying, it's best to get it from home.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
because the
best to get
home
it from
is
home.
the foundation. Your family is supposed to be that foundation of love and support and caring and communication, open communication and stuff. Not the streets, not the school, but your family, your home and
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love how you said the foundation. It
yeah,
really is. We know that science tells us that is a lot of things that we learn about love and trust. You used the word intimacy earlier. So even if we're not, I was talking about physical intimacy, just closeness, right? What
yeah.
it means to be close and connected and all of that. A lot of that we do, ideally, we would learn about that, like you say, the foundation at home. Another,
Mm-hmm.
just to highlight what you're saying here, it says the American Psychological Association, APA, our National Organization for Psychology, did research as well, and they said that LGBTQ individuals, so this is not just youth, but individuals facing rejection are
Yeah.
about 3 times more likely to experience high levels of depression compared to those with supportive families. You see
Mm-hmm.
that? So again, it's saying it goes back to just support, not getting that rejection, because it's saying we all need that. And it's saying here among LGBTQ folks, youth and adults, clearly
Mm-hmm.
there's been some challenges there. So we need to be even more concerned with the
Mm-hmm.
LGBTQ community feeling loved.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. Loved and supported and being able to talk about then, well, then how do you do that? And so you've been saying that some today. Let me ask you, I do want to ask a question. We kind of been talking about it. Are there any other supports? Let me ask you this. If there are youth and young adults who don't feel that they're not going to get it. They're like, hey, I've tried, I desired, I want it. Where do you think you've seen people get loving support if they can't get it from their family?
Well, there's churches
Okay.
that accept LGBT, that accept people who is in the LGBT. They got churches and they got LGBT support groups. I don't know the name of it, but every time I go to Gay Pride, I see them around at it. So there are supports that you can go to. And for transgender, they got support. They have support groups for transgender too. So
Hmm.
I mean, it's a lot of support. You just have to look it up or go to the gay pride and
And
just
find
look
it.
around and stuff. But
Yeah.
there's like a church that I used to work at
Hmm.
called Unitary University. They accept, I
Hmm.
love the church because they accept everybody for who they
Hmm.
are. And
Hmm.
there's a church, I forgot the name of the church, but somewhere in downtown too.
Okay.
So there's a lot of
Okay.
support.
Well, it's good to know, right? Because it seemed like obviously we spent most of the time, which is what we needed to do, talking about hopefully getting that from family, right? Because, there would be idea to have support and, again, that love center, just kind of love and respect and support. And if it won't happen there, you're saying, hey, there's some affirming churches out there that can be loving, affirming, and supportive. There are some support groups out there. And then Pride, if people don't know that, like every year, right? Is that usually in July? Is
It'd
that
be
Pride
like,
month
well, the
around
gay
July?
pride I go to is in October,
Oh, okay.
and
So October. Okay.
yeah, it's in October. They usually be downtown, where downtown North Little Rock, off of
Mhm.
Broadway. They have like the gay parade, and then they have a
Okay.
lot of venues that they can go to and stuff.
Okay. So that's something, and people can look that up. I know I've seen that before, and pretty much probably most major cities,
Mhm.
they'll have like Pride either in October, because I think it's what October 11th or so is like coming out day or something where
Yeah.
they celebrate Pride, and then LGBTQ Pride is June or July. Man, I should know that, but July maybe I think.
Also in
In
June too.
June, June,
Yeah.
okay. So this is
Mhm.
happening every year, and so they'll be advertised. People can look it up.
Mhm.
LGBTQ Pride. It should be maybe community organizations, churches, events. People have booths or somewhere you can sit, and they'll be able to provide you with information about it. So that's good. I do just want to share a resource, Chrissy. Yeah, because I'm holding it up, so I'll just kind of read it because I know the words are coming through backwards. But this is by, well, let me just say the name of it. That says Guiding Families of LGBTQ Loved Ones. And this particular book is geared towards pastors and parents, and they say, and all who care. So they're just saying, hey, if you care, if you want to show this love and respect, this is a book that guides families in particular on how to do that.
Mhm.
And it is written by, I want to be sure I get the author's name, Bill Henson, of Guiding Families. I think that's the name of it. Bill Henson. But anyway, he talks about having the correct posture, basically a loving posture. He goes through and defines a bunch of words, kind of talks through what we talked about today, but a lot more detail. And it gives a lot of specifics on how to's. So it's information out there for people who identify as LGBTQ so they can get love and support. And then there's also information out there for parents and loved ones.
Mhm.
I think one guy, his name is Preston Sprinkle. He's the president of the Center for Faith, Sexuality, and Gender. I do think that's a great resource that I've come across that really provides parents and loved ones with very concrete ways of how do I lovingly support my child or even my adult child and just navigate through all of this very difficult stuff. So, Chrysalis, what do you think? Like, if parents, when families do disagree, they disagree. Is it anything else you want to say about like? And when I say disagree, let me just be clear what I mean. That they disagree
May not
on
accept it.
they,
They
well, they might not accept, but they disagree about being in the relationship. So let me be clear. that's what they don't agree with. They don't think people should be in same-sex relationships. But what have you seen if there's not, they haven't made it to understand that and agree on that, not just understand, but agree about that yet? What are ways that you've seen people still be loving? Have you seen that people still be loving and it's like, I still feel supported by this person, even though I know they don't totally agree with me, like being with women, but like I do feel loved by them?
Well, um,
I'm like wondering what can they do? Like I think I don't know if you've seen it. That's a tough. I know that's a tough question. I know that's a tough one.
because me being single is like, ooh, oh goodness. Let's see. I mean, they might not, have to support it, but still
Yeah.
respect.
Okay.
It's still respect. I
Mhm.
mean, but you never know. I mean, you never know if your child have a person that love them so much and in a good healthy relationship.
Mhm.
You mean my thing is, talk to them. Get get not get what I'm trying to say. Just talk to them and see,
Mhm.
um see what they all about, because that's your
Mhm.
child and they being with somebody with somebody else, regardless they gay or straight. You still want to see, who this
Like who is
person.
this person?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I'm doing background checks and stuff,
Right.
but
I love
I
it.
mean, you still gotta respect, who they love,
Mhm.
regardless you don't like them, regardless you don't like it, you still gotta respect them. Because
Mhm.
what my old preacher, he say you don't have to love the what he say, love
Like the
the
behavior.
sin, but you don't have to like the sinner. That you
Mm.
don't you still love the person, but you don't have to like what they do. Still
Yeah.
love the person, we still respect the person. You don't have to
Mhm.
like them being gay, but still, you still gotta respect them,
Mhm.
So, but if
Yeah.
they,
Mm.
because you never know that person might, could help you out, with anything
Actually,
in
yeah.
anything, So never judge or deny the person because you never know, they could be your boss or your financial, person or whatever, Still
Mhm.
respect the person.
Absolutely. So I like how you said that you brought it back to again. So this is critical because we talked about love, but then you also talked about communication. So it's
Mhm.
like even if you don't like it, you disagree with it, still it goes back to love, communication, respect. I
And
feel
just get
like
to
those
know
are the
them.
key
Yeah,
and get to know.
I was trying to say get to know the person because, like I
Hmm.
said, you never know if they have some type of thing that you might need help with. I mean, you
Hmm.
never know until you be
Hmm.
open and never judge the person. So
Yeah, not judging them, respect them, love them, get to know them as a and I
yeah,
feel like what you're talking about now is just as a human, right? Like it's just
mhm,
another individual, a person that's worth getting to
yeah,
know and talking to. And so that's what you're saying. If they do, if they are dating somebody, like what would it, dating somebody of the same sex, what would it look like just to love your child and then love that person enough just to get to
mhm,
know them as a human and as a person. And because I think sometimes people wonder, what is that going to mean? Is it going to mean that they think I do like it? No, it doesn't have to mean that. It can mean what they would think is that this person loves me enough and
mhm,
respects me enough to do that. And that means more than anything to just
yeah,
keep that love and respect there to kind of say, you know what? They really do love me because I know how they feel about this, but they're being genuinely. This is not
mhm,
saying putting on. This is not saying putting on and pretending and faking it. No, they
yeah,
genuinely love and being compassionate and genuinely
mhm,
trying to get to know this person. So you're
yeah.
saying that to you, would you say that to you is a form of acceptance? Would that be a form of acceptance, you think? Like sitting down with you, talking to you about it, trying to understand you. And then if you or somebody else who's in the LGBT community, like they're dating somebody, hey, let me get to know this person too. I'm gonna get to know them. Like for real and
Yeah.
real, like, okay.
And step out of your box and just get to know people. That's I mean, cause like why be in the box instead of stepping out of your you step out of the box. I
Yeah.
mean,
I love it.
now
That needs to be on the shirt, Chris. That need to be on the shirt. Step out of your box and get to know
yes,
people. I love it.
yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. That's good. That's good. So we've talked today about why this is a critical conversation. Because before we did this recording, Chrissy, you said that several times. You said, "Hey, this conversation needs to be had. It's an
Yeah.
important conversation." And maybe the folks listening in know, "Hey, this is part one." So I'm just gonna go on and put out there part one. We might have a
Mm-hmm.
part two, but today part one has been about why we need to have this conversation, what it looks like. Just the beginning. I know we didn't touch on everything because there's so much that could be discussed, but
Oh
what just the
yeah.
beginning discussion of what it may look like to have love, respect, and
Mm-hmm.
acceptance. What does it look like, especially where people don't like it, where they disagree about some aspects of it, but we're talking about love, acceptance, support, respect, listen to people, get to know people. So we're talking
Mm-hmm.
and talk about why it is so important for people's emotional and mental health, and ultimately for birthing the gifts, for people being able to fully birth their gifts, fully be all of who they are, because we don't want people feeling unloved and
Mm-hmm.
misunderstood getting in the way, especially youth. We talked today a lot about youth, but we don't
Yeah.
want that getting in the way of them being all of who they can be. That'll help them to live life in this fulfilling and satisfying way, right? So we talked about the importance of all of that. So, Chrysalis, I know we've been talking, we probably talk on for a while. That's why we're gonna have a part two. But I think we've
Yeah.
given the people something to work with today. We're giving them something
To
to
be
work with today.
continued.
You get to be continued. I love it. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up? Anything else you want to say that we didn't touch on?
Well, no, I'm just gonna say, just continue love. Just look, just continue love yourself too.
Mm,
Just continue to love yourself. If nobody can, if no family or friends don't have your back, you got God got your back, and you continue loving yourself and be happy for who you are. So
I
yeah,
love it. I love it. Couldn't have said
yeah.
it better myself. Well, it's been another edition of Birthing the Gifts. It's a process conversation series. Chrysalis, thank you for prompting me to have this conversation. You're right. This was a very important conversation. So thank you for making sure we had this conversation on the Birthing the Gifts platform. Thank you. You enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, you too.